Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but we will get started. All right, welcome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Miriam Dorsett. I'm a community manager here at Entre. I'm also the founder of Chibur. We build brands and products for artists and community organizations. And we're hosting this chat today with Olu Adedeji.
Adedeji, you did pretty well for first time.
Thank you for your
no worries.
So Entre is the #1 fastest growing Web3 professional network, and it offers you a new way to work. Here on Entre, we combine social like LinkedIn, marketplace like Upwork, and communication tools like Slack. Our goal is to enable anyone from around the world to easily connect and work with people and the resources they need to help them succeed. If you have any questions about Entre, feel free to shoot me a message in DMs, or you can pop them into the chat and we'll take them. But I'm very excited to welcome Olu to share some time with us today. Highly successful startup founder with over 20 years of experience in the baking industry. He ended up leaving it and start his own venture in the startup world. Started off, similar story as many of us, failing, learning, applying that experience, and eventually he gained a deeper understanding of why founders need to obsess about scaling quickly. And this led him to found Prelo, an AI-driven revenue growth platform. We're going to learn more about his story here today. Feel free to chat in any questions you have along the way. But Olu, how are you doing today? Tell me what's going on with you. I'd love to hear just a quick little update and anything else I might have left out of your intro.
Perfect intro, Miriam. Appreciate it, and thanks for having me. You hit the nail on the head. I was in banking for about 20 years. I specialized in derivatives products. For anybody that knows anything about or a little bit about finance and financial products, I spent 20 years, worked for about 10 different banks. Majority in London, worked all over the world, got really fed up with the corporate world and the corporate ladder and everything else that goes with it. And I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to jump in a completely different industry and just try my hands on this whole startup thing. And it completely humbled me, shall we say, which was good. It was good to get that kick in the backside, and it was truly humbling. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. I see you're set up with a nighttime background there. And I always ask people, like, what do you have on your desk so we can get to know you a little bit more in like a different way? So do you have anything interesting that you can share, a little trinket or something that
I could. Thanks for the question. So behind me is the River Thames. I live in London. I've lived in London for a very long time, a couple of decades, and so I live in a condo that overlooks the River Thames, and you probably see boats sort of going along the River Thames in the background there. I wasn't actually sure whether to put a false background in or just give you the real deal. So I'm happy I gave you the real deal, which meant we could talk around it. In terms of what I've got on my desk, what I've got going on, it's a lot has happened last week. Just had a co-founder, sign to work with us and help grow Prelo. So we got loads of big things coming up over the next 2-3 months and so on.
Huge. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We could have a whole chat just about that, how that process went with finding a co-founder. Drop up a reaction if you're a solo founder, or drop it into the chat. Let's go ahead and react with a happy face if you're a solo founder, and the peace sign if you are on this journey with a partner, if you have a co-founder with you. Love to hear from you guys. So let's dive into a little bit more about Crello. How did you come up with the name for it? What does it mean? Like, what has that been like?
Thanks, Miriam. So interestingly, Prelo is actually a kind of acronym almost for people, relationships, and connections. Now, you kind of think, well, the P is for people, the R is for relationships, but Elo, what does that mean? Well, Elo means connection in Portuguese, funny enough. And you're probably thinking, but why Portuguese? Well, I'm an avid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, so I enjoy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've loved that for many years. Competitions and what have you, and of course in Brazil, Portuguese is a language, right? So that's kind of why we use the word Elo to mean connection. So that's essentially what Prelo is. We're building something much grander than just lead generation. We're building a way for investors, startups, and service providers to connect organically and exchange services and anything else that goes along with that.
Love that. And I pulled up the website here, and it's been pretty successful. Do you mind sharing I think you guys were at a pretty high monthly recurring revenue, if I remember correctly from our conversation.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say high monthly recurring revenue. It's funny because we launched Prelo in September of 2021. So it's been going for a short while, but we got to revenue very quickly, literally in 4 or 5 weeks. And we've been growing steadily. And since then, you've got to remember it's a small company and we're just building out. But yeah, we have a solid recurring revenue, which is good. But I can't share that too much at the moment. We're also going to be talking to investors very soon, next month, ideally.
Fantastic. Right. Well, we'll have to do a checkup with you in 6 months or so. I'm trying to learn about that VC world myself, and it's quite a situation. I know that. So Crello is AI based.
Yes. Sorry, come on.
Well, tell us, what does it do, and why should we be thinking about this as startup founders?
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background in terms of how we got to building Prelo, just very quickly. So I mentioned at the start of the show that I launched a previous startup that failed. That startup was an AI-driven recommendation platform that was supposed to help job seekers find jobs in the startup world and help startups find talent. And it was purely an AI-driven recommendation system that took resumes and took job descriptions and took skills from resumes and job description as well, and merged all of that and created a quantifiable value that excluded things like where you went to school and all that sort of stuff. It excluded the typical biases that you would have in I guess standard AI platforms. So we built that, and we built it, and we sort of spent several months, almost 12 months, nurturing the models, right? But unfortunately, when we launched it, nobody was interested. A lot of the startups that we were interested in already had recruiters and HR people working for them who didn't like the idea of an AI platform. So it was at that point that we realized, well, two things were happening. One, we couldn't find a way to identify startups that were going to be interested in what we had built, which is a SaaS product, a software as a service product for startups. We didn't know who had funding, who could afford our services, who was generating revenue and all that sort of stuff. So we then, at the point we were about to call it a day with the previous startup, we decided that we were going to try something different and use some of the data, some of the algorithms that we had created to build Prelo, which is supposed to fix the problem that caused our initial startup to fail. So Prelo came out as a result of our previous failure of not being able to identify startups that have been funded, startups that are raising revenue. So very quickly, the whole ethos of Prelo is almost something that will help solopreneurs, solo founders, and small early stage startups dynamically identify companies that they could be engaging with in order to form relationships and start to pitch their services and their products.
I love it. I need to check it out myself, being a solo small founder, and leads is always a thing. What is the future of, from your subject matter expertise, like being in AI? I remember 5 years ago, AI was like, everybody was like, AI, artificial intelligence, chatbots, like it was the whole thing. And now we've come a little bit, it's died down. We're starting to see products like yourself that are available and leveraging the power of it. Where are we going in AI from here? Why is AI important? Is it still important? What's the future?
So I think it's still important. I think what's happened over the last couple of years, and we were one of the first, one of the first few to jump into AI in 2015, 2016, when we started building our first startup. So it was very rudimentary at the time. There was, all of the tools that there are right now, it didn't exist then. So everything was very clunky. And now I think AI is better understood, and people aren't quite as afraid as they were of AI, as they were in sort of 2017, 2018. What has happened, I think, over the last 5 years with AI is that it's been refined in a way, not the technology itself, obviously the technology has been refined, but the way it's been used, the use cases have been refined. And I think to a certain extent, it's allowed the consumers to feel comfortable, or feel a little bit more comfortable, that AI is more of an enabler and it's not something that's necessarily going to be taking over their jobs or any of that sort of stuff, at least not for the foreseeable future. There are things that are happening at the moment that that AI can automate, but I think people having that sort of understanding that it's not this behemoth that's going to completely wipe out all of the jobs, I think is it's the biggest the biggest trend that I've seen. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was writing about it back, those years ago, I had looked into that. And in the past, every time we introduced like new technologies to our society, we actually end up creating more jobs. So I think a trend we're going to continue to see. More jobs are going to be created, and life just becomes better when you have automation, at least in my opinion.
Absolutely, Miriam, absolutely. And I think the thing as well is a lot of people that are using AI now are actually steering clear from saying we're using AI, because it's no longer a buzzword. It's no longer a fad. It's kind of expected, right? So, even if you use WhatsApp, there's some element of machine learning in WhatsApp as it is at the moment. So there's no need for somebody to categorically put in their platform, well, we're using AI. So what? I think all of that fanfare has died down quite a lot now. Agree.
Yeah, it is expected. Is there any way we could do a quick demo of it?
I can show you very quickly. Interesting. Yeah, I can show you very, very quickly. How can I share my screen?
Let's see if this works for us. It should have a button down at the bottom with some sharing instructions.
Okay.
Tab on the screen.
Start share. Is that the third button from the left?
Mm-hmm.
Let me just. Okay, let's try. Here we go. Let me know if you can see yourself.
Not just yet, but we'll wait for it. There we go. Nice.
Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. So I'm just sharing. I'm sharing my screen now.
Cool.
Prelo, as you can see, this is the dashboard of the Prelo platform, and what you can see is information about startups, information about tech companies. what we try and gather very, in a very sort of easy to use, intuitive way is all the information that you need to make a decision as whether or not you want to approach a particular company. This is something that really plagued us with our first startup, not knowing who's the best person that we need to be reaching out to in order to identify, who can actually pay for what we've created, especially if your job or your service is related to the startup space. So here is, we're telling you when they were funded. We these are all recent fundings. And here you can get to see a little bit more information about those companies. We give you some info about the industries that these companies say that they represent, and just high-level email and website of their, of the companies as well is also useful. A little bit more about the companies. A lot of people don't truly understand the funding, the funding ecosystem. So we provide a little bit of info to people who come on the site about what funding, what's a C round, what's a Series C round, how much typically would you expect? I mean, these are fairly old numbers, but in terms of the concept and what it actually, what that stage of funding means, we've kept that authentic. You can obviously read more if you want to. Here is something that we've created, which is a rating process that helps you very quickly identify some of the companies in terms of, did they hire recently, were they funded recently, and whether the industry matches that you previously selected in terms of companies, in terms of industries you're interested in, are matched or not, or well matched or not. And here we also give you some information about, some of the key decision makers in those companies if you're interested in their jobs and so on. So that's kind of high level. It has also a very simple workflow to help you manage, your outreach. And in here, we've integrated with a company called Close. Close is a CRM similar to HubSpot, and you can, with one click, export all your leads into Close. So here is like the contacts. Specifically, you can search them by, number of employees. You can search, you can do so much with it. It's absolutely, it's kind of ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But, and you can get there, you can get so much out of this. Yeah. And you can also search by, for example, if you're looking for somebody in marketing, for example, for the companies that you've selected, it will show you that information if you need it. So there I just searched for somebody in marketing with employee sizes of 11 to 50. The reason I did 11 to 50 is because typically with lead, when you're trying to build partnerships, you want the shortest path to the decision makers possible. And the best way to do that is to connect with, companies that are well funded and don't have too many employees, and then that increases your chances of of finding the right people. Here, very quickly, we're building out a library for email templates. So these are some email templates that you can quickly pick up. Say, for example, you've created a startup and you're trying to build. And you're trying to build like a drip campaign, for example. These are some of the top companies out there who are doing drip campaigns in terms of emails, and you can pick what they're doing and literally leverage and make necessary changes to replicate what they do. So yeah, so I'm not going to bore you too much with this, but yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. This is the section where you select the industries that you're interested in and the location, the countries that you're interested in. And this is where the AI bit, or the bit where we do the recommendations, happen, where we give you, it's kind of like a nice, easy way for you to identify companies that you could be interested in. And that shows up in your dashboard as you scroll through this. This is a really cool way of using the platform via mobile phone. So we've designed it, it's not a mobile app, but we've designed this section to allow you to just scroll through and add companies to the list as and when. but yeah, that's pretty much it in a very short presentation. Hope you enjoyed that.
I did. It's a beautiful UI.
Oh, thank you.
It's so simple to kind of like, I can tell if I popped in there, I would be able to navigate quite quickly. I love the use of tooltips and the education that you've built into it, because it just shows that you understand who's using, like your user. When I come in there, I'm looking Series C, well, let's give them a little nugget so that way they know what they're doing. Those little details really make a huge difference.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Congratulations on that. Very nice. When you're thinking about your journey, and you shared a little bit about it, but any other successes and challenges, highlights, this could be learnings, tips, tricks, or best practices that you can share with other people that are on the same path as you?
There loads of things that I picked up. Obviously, learning and going through the process, having failed. There's a lot of things that you take away from that, right? Especially if you're analytical. If you've worked in banking for as long as I have, you're kind of obsessed with data, right? And you're kind of thinking, how did I mess up that time? What do I need to change, right? So one of the key things that I can help with, and this is again something that we're going to be building, myself and Emily, who's our co-founder, as we move on, is one, just helping founders manage stress better, because stress is such a big thing in this whole startup space that's rarely talked about. There's a lot of challenges with mental health and so on that needs to be talked about. But in terms of actionable advice, founders, if you're building technology, you need to get the MVP out as quickly as possible. That's the minimum viable product. Get it out ASAP. We built that in 3 weeks. I mean, it was terrible. It didn't look anything like that, but we got it out, and we put a price on it, right? Because we wanted to be clear on the types of customers that were going to use it, because they wouldn't care what it looked like as long as it solved their key problem. And that key problem for us was identifying technology companies that had been funded. That was a key problem. So it didn't matter if we had it in the Google Sheets. These people were going to use it. So the key is, one, understanding your customers and whether they're going to use the product. Two, putting a price on it. And the reason you need to put a price on it is because of this. You only want feedback from people who have paid for the product. People who have not paid for the product, they don't have skin in the game. They're not going to, they would say things that they'd like to see, things that are nice to see, but not necessarily things that is stopping them from doing their work, things that's stopping them from earning money. These are super important. That's why you need to put a price on your product from day one. And the minute that you get a paying customer, that's validation. Then you can say, right, okay, this is a paying customer. I need to understand and get on a call with them as quickly as possible, get on a phone call with them as quickly as possible, and try and understand, why did they buy the product? Mm-hmm. What did they see in it? Because data is everything, especially when you're starting off, and there's not a lot of it when you launch your product. So you need to get on top of it and try and get to the data as quickly as you possibly can. So that's definitely one thing that I would say is super important. The other thing that's extremely important is this. Don't spend ages thinking about a logo. Don't spend ages thinking about a name. Nobody really cares, right? I mean, you've got no brand, and certainly your brand isn't your logo. Your brand isn't your logo. I mean, the logo that we have at the moment, I created it in half an hour. I literally created that in half an hour in PowerPoint. I mean, and we're still using it now. I mean, so from that perspective, the name I came up with in half an hour, I just thought, well, I like jiu-jitsu. I need to find something that's really short and catchy and something people can remember. As long as you don't have a a name that's like 10 syllables long that people can never remember, right? So these are really, really important things that founders need to obsess less about. And also, unless you're building a new spaceship for NASA, nobody cares about whether you're building in stealth. Tell everybody about what you're doing. The more people you tell about what you're doing, the more real feedback you can get. So you don't spend ages building in a cave and come out and say, hey, look at what I built. And people say, well, actually, not interested in this, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful.
Such good nuggets. Definitely. Thank you for summarizing some of the key things that I know in the beginning of my journey myself. You hear these things from people, but sometimes you need to hear them 3, 4, 5 times before, because we as startup founders, we're very headstrong. We have our vision. We know what's going on, right? But
100%.
Learning is everything, I think, in the journey. So
100%. And just very quickly, you need to embrace feedback. Your job as a founder is to go out there and seek the people who will tell you why your product is not good. You need to be comfortable speaking to people and then giving you feedback that what you've built is crap or whatever it may be, right? You need to go out there and seek that, because maybe a fraction of the people are just saying it because they don't like you or whatever, but you'd quickly find out. And the way you find out is you keep asking why don't you like it? Why do you think this is, what do you think I can change? If they're just telling you because they don't like you, you'd know very quickly. But if they're telling you, well, I don't like the onboarding process, I don't like the fact that this button is over there, I don't like, this. And also what's really important, I know we're probably going to go a little bit over time here, but when we first started Prelo, I knew what we wanted to do with it. I knew that what we were building was something not just for solopreneurs. We knew it was something for investors as well, to find startups that were at a particular stage so that they can invest at a next round. But what happened was this: when we launched it and we shared it with investors, we shared it with solopreneurs, we shared it with early stage founders and so on, what we quickly realized was this: investors wanted a lot more information, which was slightly outside of the core value of what we were delivering, and much more work for us that we could deliver very quickly. So we had to change our narrative and say, it's not for investors right now, it's just for solopreneurs. But what we did was we asked the investors detailed questions about what they would like to see about what, different. And they told us, they said, well, yeah, great, we like this, but we want to see burnout rates. We want to see a little bit more info about the founders. We want to see, so there was really useful stuff there that we got that will help us, so that when we do version 3, version 4, which we've written down in the backlog. So it's very, very important to understand your vision, understand who your customers are based on where your product is in its life cycle. That's so, so important, because we didn't say we're not going to be delivering this for investors. We just said we're not going to be delivering this for investors right now, and therefore we can't facilitate those requirements. But having said that, we still have a couple of investors using it today because they like the UI and like it's simple to use and all that sort of stuff. But we know what they want. Absolutely,
really good. And just keep it in the backlog. One thing at a time. Yeah,
absolutely.
Always writing down those notes and those ideas. I want to ask you, do you have any interest in the newest buzzword? Web3, blockchain, crypto. Any plans to dabble?
Man. So I was really interested in crypto in 2016, 2017. A lot happened then. There were a lot of scams, and it kind of turned me off crypto a little bit. I'm definitely interested in crypto, but more from the blockchain perspective rather than from the crypto perspective. And one of the reasons why I'm a banker at heart, right? And I feel that, you know, whilst there will be a diverse economy, an economy that essentially allows people to the unbanked to enter a free economy almost, and an opportunity for people to earn regardless of what their situation with regards to currency exchange rates and all that sort of stuff was concerned. That's great. The issue that I have with it at the moment is it's very it's almost like an echo chamber. There's so many, there's just not enough people in the pool for it to be realistic. I couldn't say to, the barber on the street, are you now going to turn your barber shop now to accept, Bitcoin or Litecoin or whatever? It's just not going to happen. They want to see cash, and the trains, the trains and so on are not taking crypto at this point. Maybe in China they are, maybe they are, but right now it's not happening. So for me, there are many use cases, and it was something actually we dabbled in with our first startup. We wanted to incorporate crypto, but we were trying to run before we could walk. But that's a different conversation. But the key for me is this: I think, if you think about if you think about the use cases for the actual technology, which is the blockchain technology, I think there are massive use cases that can be amazing in terms of logistics, in terms of, I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, well, it would just be amazing if they could use this process, this blockchain, to track medical records, for example. When I move from one state to another, and I need to transfer my medical records to this new, doctor or whatever, can I just go onto an app and just see where my medical records are, so I can just do it myself, and see where it is in the process? That'll be fantastic. So use cases for blockchain, definitely I see. Web3, I think it's going to stay, but I think that there are, similar to what blockchain was like in 2016, 2017, I think they're just struggling at the moment to identify relevant use cases that people buy into. NFTs, I'm not really my thing at the moment. I just feel that true artists are not necessarily interested in it. And I think it's just another way for non-mainstream artists or people who just want to dabble in digital art to do something slightly different. I'm a little bit big. I wouldn't say I'm massively big into art, but I do appreciate art. So the people that are pushing Web3 are not original artists who that's just my experience. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I don't think that it's necessarily something that's benefiting the original artist, so to speak. But that's just, maybe I'm just old school. I don't know, but that's my view.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing so candidly. I have a lot of reservations myself. I'm cautiously optimistic. I feel the spirit of the Web3 community, and but at the same time, I can play well in the reality that we are in today. The financial rules are clearer to me, and so if we're going to be building a new system, it really should look different. And a lot of the times, to me, it looks exactly the same in terms of like where the power is laying. And we definitely need education. I think priority first, especially if we're putting it in place in cities and in governments where people just don't understand it. And now we're putting it in place for that it's going to affect their lives. We've got to slow down a little bit. The older population, my grandparents, I can't even barely get them to use an iPhone. Try to explain blockchain to them. Hey, you got to go now. You vote with a blockchain or something like that. They're going to lose it. So I just want to respect it. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm keeping watch. Is there anything else that we should know about you, your interest in art, Crello?
Just really about Prelo. I think I mentioned at the start that our vision is helping solopreneurs and helping founders create a better platform to allow them to grow their businesses and grow their startups without collateral damage. I think that's really the focus for 2022. And I'm so excited to have Emily join or sign as co-founder, because, I'm very passionate about, stress management, passionate about mental health. And whilst I look at myself and I say, yeah, I've endured 20 years of banking and it's investment banking. So it is extremely stressful and so on. I know that there are other people that are that deal with stresses in different ways, and I'm sure it's taken its toll on me in some way, shape, or form, and especially going through a startup and failing and all that sort of stuff. So our goal for 2022 is to build an ecosystem that essentially helps founders create traction, scale their businesses without collateral damage. And collateral damage for me means depression, mental health issues, general stresses, and so on. So that's really what we're working towards in 2022, and that's really our goal for for the next sort of 6 months or so. How we're going to do it, it's going to be absolutely crazy. I know that it's going to be, in terms of just the amount of work, like we've just been talking about this for the last 2 months or so, and it's going to be a challenge.
Well, let's talk more, because I'm not sure if you know. Well, I'm sure. I hope I mentioned it to you. My passion for mental health, and
oh wow, okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh wow.
So my product Quokka is anonymous messaging for mental health, and I started with founders as my niche market because I know the stress that we are under.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Oh, there may be a collaboration then.
That's
brilliant. That's brilliant.
That. We're not available in the UK right now, though. We're only available in the US and Canada. But I've also done a lot of research, and if you like data, I've got a lot of it, and I would love to share. If you're building, if you have efforts over there to strengthen the mental health of people, I want to support in any way that I can.
Awesome. No, thank you. We're location agnostic, so that's just to, and you probably see, we're location agnostic, so 100% would love to find out a little bit more, Miriam.
Thank you. Thank you for always being so open with your time and expertise. I appreciate you. And how can those that are watching this back, how can they get in touch with you, support you, follow your work?
Thank you. So I'm always on Twitter. I don't know if we're connected on Twitter, but I'm always on Twitter. My goal is just to share as much of my experience as possible with people, to help them learn from my mistakes and to empower them however I can. And again, this is all part of the whole process of what we're going to be building in 2022 to help founders. I'm really about, just helping founders get, create a better future, because it's such a crazy industry, the startup world, that only the successful people voices are heard. The people that are struggling in the background are rarely heard, and so from that perspective, that's really my vision. I'm not even sure if I answered your question. I just rambled on.
No, that was great. You started off with Twitter, and I pulled it up so people can see
awesome
the tweets that you're doing, and they can head over there. I'll make sure to share this into our room chat here as well, and people can pull it up if they're watching the recording back. Appreciate you. Again, just want to say thank you for your time. And thanks for everybody watching video, this recording, if you're watching it. I hope you guys have a wonderful, beautiful day. And yeah, just reach out if you guys need anything. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Miriam. Appreciate you having me. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot.